In the past, politicians promised to create a better world. They had different ways of achieving this, but their power and authority came from the optimistic visions they offered their people. Those dreams failed, and today people have lost faith in ideologies. Increasingly, politicians are seen simply as managers of public life. But now, they have discovered a new role that restores their power and authority. Instead of delivering dreams, politicians now promise to protect us from nightmares. They say that they will rescue us from dreadful dangers that we cannot see and do not understand. And the greatest danger of all is international terrorism, a powerful and sinister network with sleeper cells in countries across the world. A threat that needs to be fought by a war on terror. But much of this threat is a fantasy which has been exaggerated and distorted by politicians. It's a dark illusion that has spread unquestioned through governments around the world, the security services and the international media. This is a series of films about how and why that fantasy was created and who it benefits. At the heart of the story are two groups, the American neoconservatives and the radical Islamists. Last week's episode ended in the late 90s, with both groups marginalised and out of power. But with the attacks on September the 11th, the fates of both dramatically changed. The Islamists, after their moment of triumph, were virtually destroyed within months, while the neoconservatives took power in Washington. But then, the neoconservatives began to reconstruct the Islamists. They created a phantom enemy. And as this nightmare fantasy began to spread, politicians realised the new power it gave them in a deeply disillusioned age. Those with the darkest nightmares became the most powerful. At the end of the 1990s, Osama bin Laden had returned to Afghanistan. He was accompanied by Ayman Zawahiri, the most influential ideologist of the Islamist movement. For 20 years, Zawahiri had struggled to create revolutions in the Arab world, but all attempts had ended in bloody failure.
Information about your whereabouts for some time. Where were you?
I was just roaming about.
In Afghanistan? Somewhere else?
Everywhere. I'm a Muslim. Being a Muslim, you are wanted everywhere. Because if you say no to the superpowers, this in itself it's a crime. You are wanted for.
But it is easy for you to move around.
It's the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is greater than a superpower.
Zawahiri was a follower of the Egyptian revolutionary Said Qutb, who had been executed in 1966. Qutb's vision had been of a new type of modern state. It would contain all the benefits of Western science and technology, but it would use Islam as a moral framework to protect people from the culture of Western liberalism. Qutb believed that this culture infected the minds of Muslims, turning them into selfish creatures who threatened to destroy the shared values that held society together.
On this side here, you will see that there is a hadith related in Sahih Muslim. It's also contained in Mishkat. And here we see that Abu Hurairah reports that Rasulullah said the last hour shall not occur till 70,000 sons of Ishaq will attack the city which is on the sea, understanding him to mean Constantinople. He said the last hour shall not occur till 70,000 sons of Isaac will attack it, but when they come, they will not fight with arms or shower it with arrows. They will simply say, there is no God but Allah, and Allah is the greatest, and one of its sides will fall. They will recite it for a second and a third time, and it will be opened unto them, and they will enter it, and they will gather the spoils of war. And then a proclaimer will come and say, verily Dajjal has come out. And they will return. In Mishkat, the same hadith is also reported with an additional few lines which are extremely important historically. He said, within 6 years, look to the Great War, Jihad Akbar. Then, after 1 more year, the emergence of Dajjal, revolution would enter every Arab house, followed by mutual hatred and hostility between the Arabs. We know from the evidence now from the British ambassador, the Times history of the war, and over 168 publications from September 1908, that this event took place on the 8th of July 1908. If we look at it from the timetable that Rasulullah mentions, if we add 6 years to 1908 July, it brings us exactly to July 1914, which is the beginning of the Great War. If you look on any of the monuments, the obelisks, the Masalla, you will find to the glorious dead fallen in the Great War. So the Jihad Akbar is the term that Rasulullah uses exactly in this hadith. And we call it, if you read any of the British histories, you'll see it's called the Great War. Exactly the term that Rasulullah uses. 1914 is when it begins, exactly 6 years to the day. Then he says, skip 1 year. Then after 1 more year, the emergence of Dajjal. So 1914, the year after 1914 is 1915, which you leap and you go to 1916, which brings us to the Arab revolt headed by Lawrence of Arabia, which begins by August of that year. Now, very interesting again. Here we have, from the Times, the 20 volumes that I have of the Great War. This is showing the Hejaz flag, but here on the right you will see that in the Hejaz itself, in 1914 and to 15, no outward sign of revolt was there, and Rasulullah says, skip 1 year. The Arab revolt begins in the August, beginning of September, in the year of 1916, exactly in the timetable given by Rasulullah. Now, what is, so here we have this is non-Muslim scholarship. This is actually reporting from the Times of the period, and we have here a very important piece, a confirmation that says that this hadith of Rasulullah has to be taken very seriously. This is a letter sent from the British Embassy in Constantinople, and it was on the 29th of May 1910. And here we see that this is the British Embassy reporting from Sir Gerald Lowther to Sir Charles Harding the makeup and the nature of the Young Turk Revolution. The Young Turk Revolution, he's pointing out, is actually been the work of the movement from Salonika, which is an entirely Jewish movement. The important thing is there that 80,000 of the Jews in Salonika, were from Ishaq. They are Semitic Jews. There are 20,000 from the sect of Shabbat Zvi, who were people like the Ashkenazi who converted to Judaism and then apparently converted to Islam, but only on the surface. So the important number here is to see that these are 70,000 sons of Ishaq, and they're known to be from the Sephardic community. There's no doubt about that. And Sir Gerald Lowther is pointing out here, as you'll see, that basically it was an entirely Masonic movement. The whole system was Freemasons, and the group in Salonika, they had lodges that were there under French and Italian control. And the whole operation for the takeover of the Ottoman Empire was engineered through Salonika. It was financed by the banking house of Jacob Schiff in Wall Street, and it was funded and financed, as was the Bolshevik Revolution, through the same banking houses. In fact, Trotsky, for 3 months prior to the revolution in 1917, was staying with Jacob Schiff in Wall Street. So here we have a very interesting link with Wall Street and the fact that there was a policy to obtain Palestine by stealth, and beginning with, of course, undermining the whole of the Turkish Ottoman Caliphate and the administration. By the end of July of 1908, this secret society took control of the Ottoman administration. Javed Bey, all the administrators, the heads of the army, everything, eventually all of them were governed by this group of Freemasons, Masonic Jews, some professing to be Muslims, but in actual fact this was the total movement, was engineered and financed out of the City of London and out of Wall Street in America.
It's true to nothing but the truth. Yeah. Run, run, run. Revolution a come. Run, run, run. Revolution a come. Some of them want socialism. Some of them want capitalism. Some of them want communism. They all want all kind of ism. Run, run, run. Revolution a come. Run, run, run. Revolution a come. The press must free, so we all can see your wrongdoings and your brutality. Run, run, run. Revolution a come. Equality is justice. Human rights stands for all. If we fight Babylon, kingdom will fall. Run, run, run. Revolution a come.